Test. 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 Ten, 11, 7.
So cover me up. You know you're enough to use me for good. Put your faith to the test when I tore off your dress in Richmond all night. I sobered up, I swore off that stuff forever this time. The old lovers say I thought it'd be me who helped him get home. Home was a dream, one I'd never seen till you came along. Made up her own doctor's notes, surrounded by her family. I saw that she was dying alone. I'd sing her classic country songs, and she'd get high and sing along. She don't have a voice to sing with. We burn these joints in effigy, cry about what we used to be, try to ignore the elephant somehow. I've buried her 1,000 times, giving up my place in line, but I don't give a damn about that now. There's one thing that's real clear to me: no one dies with dignity. You just try to ignore the elephant somehow. You just try to ignore the elephant somehow. You just try to ignore the elephant somehow. Somehow. From the sky we look so organized. Walls of makeup, barricades, and graves. Daddy's little empire built by slave. From the sky we look so organized and brave. Drunken tears and tugging at your skirt. I saw you rising from the dirt. Take my hand, baby, we're old man. Water makes you cry. Take my hand, baby, over land. I'll fly over water makes you so long. Let me say why. You left behind.
Hello?
Take my hand, baby, we're over land. I know water makes you cry. Been in the sky so long, seems like a long way home. Oh, let me say why. Staring at the pictures of the runaways on the wall. Seems like these days you couldn't run away at all. Even if you did, what you got to run away to? Just another drunk daddy with a white man's point of view. I can see you in my mind's eye, catching the light. Sleep beside the river every minute out of town at night. You can strip me a corner from the day you turned 16. You got one thing to sell, been told that it's me. 10 years ago, I might have seen you dancing in a different light. But I offered up my help in different ways. Those were different days. Those were different days. Had a girl back home to share a single bed. When I whispered in her ear, she believed every word I said. If she didn't believe, she didn't dare give me the slack. Cause baby, I love you, get off of her goddamn back. Time went by and I left again. Jesus was a sinner, but now he loves the same. My daddy told me, I believe he told me true. The right things always are the same. 10 years ago, I might stuck around for another night. You sure in 1,000 different ways. Those were different days. Those were different days. The story's only mine to live and die. The answer's only mine to come across. But the ghost that I got scared and I died. not around, could it be the man who did the things I'm doing now? I was rougher than the timber, shooting out on the light. When I headed south at 17, the sheriff on my back. I never held a lover in my arms, in my gaze. So I found another victim every couple of days. But tonight I fell in love with her. I made no means known. The fires and the farmers began dusty fields alone. The jealous innuendos of the lonely-hearted men. Let me know what kind of country house is sweet as him. But he couldn't stay longer on the plains. My neighbors took dislike to me. I had to ask what for. Rumors of my wickedness had reached out of town. So she heard about the boys I used to hang around. We robbed the Great Lakes, sprayed and killed a couple men aboard. And I told her I spent her like the sharks steal. So all the things that she suspected, I expected her to feel. Was the truth that drew her to me when I landed here. There's a man who walks beside me, he is who I used to be. I wonder if she sees him and confuses him with me. I wonder if she's pining for all the nights I've run around. Could it be the man who did the things I'm doing now? Well, I carved across the plywood in her box and shore these pines. Buried her so deep she touched the water table. Picked up what I needed and I hit this out again. Myself, I wonder what I ever found. There's a man who walks beside her, he is who I used to be. And I wonder if she sees him and confuses him with me. I said there's two kinds of men in this world, and you're neither of them. And his fist got the smoke. I had an eighth of a second to wonder if he got the joke. In the car, headed home. She asked him how he considered the prospect of living alone in the state. My eyes, and just some of the confidence needed to hear your cry.
Test, test. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test.
got microphones everywhere. Karen, tell me where you went. I have no clue. You know, I have no clue. Do you have to say something? Do you want to sit up here? I have to say a little bit. Yeah. I don't say a whole lot. Well, why don't you come over here with the mic and then I'll sit where your first is. Because I don't. Hi, good evening. Microphone works. Yes, it is. It fits. Very windy.
for December the 14th is now in session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
In closed session we are. Yeah, it's over there.
You should not need anything. They will have everything you need back there. Well, we're definitely not going to card you.
Test. Test, test. Test, test. closed session. You then,
I'm talking about the grant, K-12 innovation grant.
um,
Are you presenting?
no, when it's your turn to talk, can you just grab that mic that's on the stand closest to us? It's where,
On the wooden stand? No.
it's right past it's up on the stage past the podium. I
Okay,
just have it there for Dr. Shores right now.
okay,
But that's the wireless mic.
okay,
And just keep as close to the stage as possible. You just don't want to be in front of those speakers. There'll be feedback.
okay.
Do you have a presentation or you?
No, I'll just see where Pete's sitting.
But Pete's going to be sitting.
Oh, he's sitting,
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just move that mic down when it's your turn to talk.
okay. Are we live streaming it?
Um,
Streaming
no, audio.
it. Great. The wind out there is brutal.
Is it?
Yeah, I was in the car and like the whole car is shaking.
I've been here since 2:30, so like I haven't been outside. I grabbed the equipment and came out. It takes me a while to set this up, and then usually some snack or something. The table weren't set up, so Dustin and I have to go up real quick.
Oh my gosh.
You come in through the front.
I can enter the side, the car's on the side and tell the doors back.
Open the doors out front. But people coming out for me.
are you guys? Hello. How are you? Good to see you. You too. How's school? Good. Going okay? Yeah. You're what, third grade, fourth grade? Third grade. Yeah. Right? Oh my goodness, who's your teacher this year? Miss Shores. Very cool. Are you still doing gymnastics? Are you doing gymnastics? You or not? No, you do not. Your cousin did gymnastics, didn't right? Yeah. There you go. Okay.
Uh-oh, Steve, I forgot. Has an adapter for everything. Steve, are you up there?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I wasn't planning on using that. I don't have that adapter.
Do you have a USB-C? Like so on your,
What?
do you have a USB-C port on your Mac?
I don't know what that is. I just know that anything I want to plug into that, I gotta have that white adapter.
I can give you my spare.
Okay.
I forgot my license plate. License.
How did I get up there, Steve?
Be careful. The ladder's steep.
That first step.
That ladder's steep, isn't it? You go straight up and then you cross over.
Was
Four.
Actually, those things too, of course, there's the monthly report, but also there is a correction to the budget transfer request that's in the board packet. State change the amount.
I think we are ready.
Is Mr. Duncan?
Steve, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board discussed personnel matters, excuse me, student matters and legal matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. Will the members of the board certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session? Please respond by roll call.
Mr. Gerhart.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Gretz doesn't have any recognitions tonight, but I would like to say something. All of this wonderful money that has come in from the CARES Act has done an enormous amount of good. The nutrition program, the IT programs, so many of the Chromebooks, so many things have been added to us with enormous help through this difficult educational period. One thing that we don't always see, at least most of us don't see, is behind that is an enormous amount of paperwork. Everything has to be understood, and you have to document in order to get the money, in order to prove what you're spending it on, and in order to understand what you can spend the money on. And Mrs. Murray has worked tirelessly these last 9 months to make sure that our county finances have worked perfectly with what is required by the state and the federal government. I have seen her at work on weekends and holidays. And Mrs. Murray, I just want to say thank you so much for all that you've done, because I know a lot of your work is unseen and you're one of those unsung heroes for this particular time. So thank you.
Here, here.
All right. The additions and corrections to the agenda you have in your hand there, and Mrs. Murray has pointed out that there is a correction to a budget transfer request. Is there a motion to approve the additions and corrections?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Public announcements. December the 14th is the interim grade reports issued. December the 21st through January the 1st, all schools are closed for winter break holiday. December the 23rd and 25th, the school division closed for Christmas holidays. December the 30th through January the 1st, school division closed for New Year holiday. And January the 11th is the next school board meeting at St. Clair Walker Middle School in the auditorium at 7 p.m. The floor is open for public comment.
Where do you want me to go?
Just hold my hand.
Thank God, the school can give you this mic.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Moore. My daughter is in Middlesex Elementary School. I know this has been a challenging time for all of us, but at some point there is a communication breakdown between the schools and us parents. I'm only one parent, the only one that showed up tonight, but I hear a lot of people complain, but I'm going to speak for myself. There's new things happening that we're not always privy on. I think it would be easier for some of us parents, being that we're in this realm of the pandemic. Maybe if the teachers, especially for us elementary parents, would like take an hour on their Wednesday and say, hey, on this Wednesday, I'm going to do a training session for you, because trying to maneuver between these apps is not really working. And my child has an F that I am not happy about. So I think that's one thing that needs to be looked at. Two, I didn't know there was a new program. I never got my child's report card. I will be calling the office because I've said something and still haven't gotten it. I don't like that. She is enjoying herself though. She does go back to school on Thursday and Friday, and she is loving it, but it is still a challenge to have to do the virtual at home Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and still maneuver between these programs, because you click here and there's an assignment, and then you click here and there's nothing there. So you think you're done, but then you have to click here and you find something else that was due. And by the time I get to it, we were originally told there's 14 days for your child to complete an assignment. That is not true. You have less than 24 hours when it's posted. I've had her up until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night trying to get the assignment done before 11:59. I think that's us parents need more help. And I can't speak for all parents. I know that I have suggested it. I need the help. But I know there's other parents. I know a daycare provider that would love the opportunity to sit in on that, because she helps some of the kids at her daycare and has no clue what to do. But I thank you for everything you have done. The lunch program is wonderful. And thank you, Ms. McMurtry, for making sure that the school has all the funding that they need at this point. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Anyone else? All right, the floor is now closed for public comments. Reports from board members. Mr. Goforth, anything? Bridget?
Not at this time.
Dr. Shores, anything? Ms. Reeves? Mr. Hara? And the regional SPED doesn't meet again until late January, so I'll be reporting in February. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Dr. Gretz, we have some action items here, some appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, if you'll go to page 20, actually page 22 is the first actual appropriation request form. No, 21, sorry. Page 21, there are two appropriation requests. The first is, you might remember that we participated in a grant opportunity that found us in a partnership with a couple of other school divisions, and part of that was around our use of open educational resources, which is a warehousing of educational resources that began at the state level a couple of years ago. So we participated in this grant. Each of the school divisions participated in some professional activities with some teachers. And part of that grant included some stipends to be paid to those teachers. Poquoson, or is it West Point, is the
West Point was the.
West Point is the fiscal agent for the other two school divisions, for all three. And so they are sending us our portion of that grant money. And this will be appropriating that to be paid to those teachers as was specified in the grant. It's already been approved by the supervisors. I'm going to take this down just to make sure everybody can hear me well. So the second on page 22 is because we are the fiscal agent for our governor's school program, there was a purchase that was made and a mistake was made by Amazon. And so they've corrected the mistake, and this is actually a refund that is coming to us from the governor's school on behalf of the mistake that was corrected by Amazon. So those are the two appropriations. And again, they've been approved.
Mrs. Murray also handles that fiscal responsibility.
She does indeed,
That's
handles it
fine.
well.
Right. All right, is there a motion to approve the appropriations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions about the two? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Okay.
Budget transfer.
Yes, Madam Chair, the next item is a transfer of some Coronavirus Relief Act funds within this year's budget. You can see it's a little over $2,400 that we're simply asking to be transferred, supporting the air filters. Correct, Ms. Murray?
Actually, this was, we were just we were moving it from communications and a little bit left in repair and maintenance supplies to cover unemployment payouts.
Okay,
It's
okay.
just moving this-
I got you. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just a categorical transfer. It has been approved, and
And these are funds that have to be expended by the end of this month.
31st, yes.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the budget transfer indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, now we have our budget priorities for.
Okay, board members, if you can see the screen, I know it's kind of difficult when you're up here, but I did want to walk you through just a little bit of information. The budget this year, just like everything else this year, is just in a very different state than it's ever really been. Not just ours, but the budget in general at the state level. The General Assembly, has convened a couple of times, and we'll be getting back together again in January. There's several variables that we have, but I did want to talk with you about some of the priorities and have the board have an opportunity to coalesce your opinion about what we would focus on this year as we develop this document. The first thing, just to remind everybody, student enrollment is fluctuating across the state. It's really decreased across the state, primarily because of the impact of the pandemic. We're no exception to that. So one of the things that is being considered at the state level is whether legislatively the state budget will hold school divisions harmless for the average daily membership figure on which we based this year's budget, rather than allow us all to feel the decrease in state funds that will come inevitably this spring if we aren't held harmless and we're actually funded on what it looks like we're all going to have. So that remains to be seen. And as we think about next year's student enrollment figure, it's always been a difficult task to try to foretell the future and to think about how many kindergartners are going to come in and how many people and in Middlesex and in our region, as you know, we've experienced a great deal of volatility in that number, even just throughout the fiscal year. So this gives an entirely new variability to something that was already a little bit of a moving target. So I just simply put that out there. It remains to be seen what they're going to do. I think if the state holds us harmless, that will give us a different degree of confidence in projecting a number next year. And if it doesn't, we'll probably want to be a lot more conservative, understanding that if enrollment has been impacted by the pandemic and we have no idea what the impact of the pandemic will be a year from now. So that's going to be a difficult variable for us to consider, but it is an important one. The other is the additional funds that come to schools for serving at-risk students. That cap was pushed up in last year's budget. And so we're hopeful that the governor will leave it where it is at 26%. But that is a variable, and that's one that will impact us. That's about $60,000 over the biennium for us. which is a significant amount of money. So we're hopeful that that will be held at the level that it was before all this happened. That remains to be seen. And then the other initiative at the state level is considering fully funding the standards of quality, and in particular, addressing the deficiencies that resulted back in 2010 when there was a cap placed on the number of support staff positions that are mandated through the standards of quality that would actually be funded. And that funding was decreased dramatically. And this is a year when school divisions and the associations that represent school divisions are spending a great deal of time asking the state to strongly consider, if ever there was consideration for those mandatory positions to be funded, this is the year. So those are three big variables. There are three high ticket items, I guess I would say, for us, for our budget. And it will be important for us to see what happens there. The last bullet there, we'll hear from the governor at the end of this week. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of clarity about, at least initially, what he proposes with those. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with those as we consider some of these figures and what to plug in for our draft and what we anticipate for next year. Always, we monitor very carefully what's going on with our experience with health insurance. And this year in particular, that's going to be really important. We were very fortunate last year to experience a decrease. And we've experienced a couple of very good years with insurance when everyone around us is having increases of double digits, in some cases even in the 20s. We were able to experience a decrease and to pass that decrease off to our employees. So we should know sometime, hopefully, I don't know that we'll know in December, but early January, I'd say, what to anticipate with our insurance premium, whether it's going up a little bit or staying the same. I don't think, given the experience that we've been monitoring with our third-party vendor who helps us administer that program, we get together quarterly, Ms. Murray and I, and look at that. With what we've seen, I'm not anticipating a decrease. I'll be thrilled if it doesn't go up, but that's another important one because it's also an important, it impacts tremendously our ability to support our staff with salaries. That's a big one. We did an extensive report last month on CARES funding. You see the news just like I do. I have no idea what to anticipate with any kind of other additional round of relief funds or what will be tied to that. But we continue to partner with the county as much as possible on using the funds and accessing funds from a more community-based perspective to support what we're doing. But we do have a lot of things right now that are being funded with CARES funding. And as we think about continuing them into next year, that could have an impact on our budget if that funding is not there. So those are just some variables I wanted to get out there that we're monitoring and that will have a great impact, I think, on what we put together. We did a survey of our school community, that is community parents. We sent it out to as many community groups as possible and our staff as well. So this is a summary of what we received. 76 responses, majority of them parents. There was overlap in here, of course, as well, with employees and parents, and then some community members. Of the employees, you can see the majority came from the high school, and then second, the elementary school, and then third, Sinclair Walker, and then goes down from there. So we asked 3 questions, and I'm going to share the raw data with you. I didn't want to share it publicly because there's some of the respondents identified themselves personally and provided phone numbers and everything else. So I don't think it's appropriate to necessarily display that. But I've gone through it, and the first question that we asked was basically, in these unprecedented times, are there things that we've adopted that you would like to see us continue into the future? And these are some of the things that folks let us know that they wanted to keep. Technology, software, A lot of people, that was a recurring theme. That is one of the things that I think we've been able to leverage CARES funding for a lot of that, but that funding doesn't go forever, and most of those things have annual licenses, and a lot of those things to continue into the future, we'd have to pick up the funding for that unless there's some stream of money out there that we don't know is going to hit us. A lot of positive support for the community eligibility program. I don't know if this individual is listening, but I do want to clarify, because one respondent was very concerned that we were supplementing free meals for staff members using tax dollars. Tax dollars are not funding any of these meals, not for staff, not for students. It's all coming through this federal program that we participate in. And there's a delicate balance between the number of meals we're able to serve and to be reimbursed for. But to be clear, no funds are being taken from personal tax funds to support any of these meals. We do anticipate being able to continue with that regardless of whether the pandemic is happening or not. So that'll be very positive. Similar to technology and software, there's a lot of positive commentary about Canvas, and continuing with having the ability to have a learning platform that we're able to do some virtual instruction, not necessarily that people want us to continue doing the hybrid, but that we'd have the option and some flexibility with the ability to offer classes through Canvas that we didn't otherwise have. So that's the comment about virtual learning. To continue with all the safety mitigations and the additional cleaning and the sanitization that we're doing. People thought that was a good thing to continue. The support that we've offered to help families get connected through internet, to the extent that the schools are able to leverage that, they'd like us to continue. And then a lot of positive commentary about the communication that's been enhanced because of the need, frankly, for parents and teachers and everybody for all of us to be talking more. We have a lot more to share. So those are just some of the main recurring themes that I pulled out to share with you. And again, I'll give you the raw data and you can look through every single comment. Second question, we asked people to identify any potential savings. Are there areas that they think we could save money? In some cases, these were single comments. So not necessarily a whole host of people that said, let's move to a 4-day work week. But that was one suggestion, that if we move to a 4-day work week, maybe that would save some money. Streamlining so people like the technology, but there's also, there's a lot of comments out there, and I need to work with Mr. Dunkel and our principals and maybe even survey some teachers for me to really get a read on what the deal is with this. There's a suspicion that we've got some platforms out there that aren't really being leveraged, and maybe we need to streamline them instead of having so many. I don't know whether that's true or not, and I don't know what the impact would be financially, but that's something that we'll analyze together and certainly bring that to you if it does have budget implications. Reducing paper consumption, reducing the use of paper textbooks, and similarly, the next one, maybe with all of us having access to PowerSchool, maybe we don't have to mail. We've already made that move to ask people to opt in to having report cards mailed, but these were suggestions that were given to us. And then there was the suggestion, although if you read the whole comment, the person said this is really painful, but maybe athletics, if we put that on hold, that could save money. These are just some suggestions that we had. I'm following up personally with the people that gave phone numbers. I've got an appointment with one tomorrow where I'm going to just, you said you thought we could save some money. I want to hear more about your ideas. So I'll continue to have that dialogue with these folks and bring you the results. And then the last question was, are there some things you'd like us to add to the budget, or some things you want us to pay for that we aren't currently paying for? There was a lot of support for increasing compensation for staff. Additional foreign languages for students, additional mathematics intervention and support, especially at the middle and elementary levels, at least in these comments that I received. Expanded work partnerships and opportunities for students to do externships, apprenticeships. You're going to hear from the director of Compass Academy shortly about how that work is already underway. I'm very excited about that, but that's a great suggestion. We've got support for that. Additional reading support. And then they called it teen living, but described it as kind of the traditional hands-on cooking, sewing, that kind of stuff here at the middle school. A few years ago, we implemented, the only ones in the state that I know of that funded locally, a program designed to do very specialized career awareness for every single 6th, 7th, and 8th grader. This would be a little bit different than that, but along those same lines. So that's the survey. Those are the results of the survey and the input we had. I'd like to suggest, frankly, that given where we are with the pandemic and how things, I don't want to say they halted, but things definitely changed dramatically last March. We were in the middle of a year and we were making a lot of progress, and suddenly we were shut down and everything was different. And so I think, honestly, our priorities, I would put them maybe in a little different order in my suggestion to you, but I don't know that they've changed that dramatically from what we were working on last year when schools got shut down. One would be, I'm calling it support and developing staff, because I think our staff really do deserve to be recognized financially, first of all, for all the extra work that they've had to do this year. But just to keep on everybody's radar, we had a program that was implemented a few years ago through the Springstead study that was commissioned by the county, and it involved a phased approach to improving salaries. And we did phase 1 across the board. We did it in the schools, in the county, social services, and in the sheriff's office. And we were the ones who actually suggested reducing phase 1 from what was actually recommended, which was increases of double digits. And we implemented the 7%. Phase 2 has yet to happen. So I think that's something we need to strongly consider, certainly not in a vacuum. That's something that we would think about in connection with the other entities involved. But that was set to happen, and 3 years have passed now with this coming fiscal year, and phase 2 has not been implemented. So I think that's an important one to think about. And then the professional learning and support that began with our ability to turn on a dime and be able to teach in a very new way, as you've heard from one parent, and really we've heard from a lot of parents, and we see we're getting better and better at that, but we're not finished. We really need to support our teachers to continue to learn how to do that, as well as the things that we had already begun with doing balanced assessment and developing locally based alternative assessments. We were hopeful this past spring, to be ready to launch that in writing. We weren't able to do that as much as so we're going to kind of be playing catch up this year. And there's a lot of things like that we had begun that we don't want to let up on. So with regards to equitable programming, there's a long list here, and I do want to highlight the first one in particular. We made a very strong commitment to supporting intervention at the early levels, because that's where we get the most bang for our buck. That's where student deficits in numeracy and literacy, really, we can leverage that at those young ages. And we all know the data points related to reading level by the end of 3rd grade and how that relates to everything from graduation to employment to success and future education, things like that. So I'm very proud of the work we did as a division to launch essentially six separate pre-K classrooms in a division our size. That's a little bit unheard of. We embarked on, we participated in the VPI, the Virginia Preschool Initiative Program, for the first time. We'd always left money on the table, and we decided to take it, to use our match, and to support another pre-K opportunity there. I think what we didn't know is just how much administrative paperwork and reporting would go along with that program. That's something that we've expressed to the state. That's no secret that we feel that way. And across the board in Virginia, there are a lot of people who are dropping out of that for that reason. It's essentially a full-time job for our administrator at the elementary level, who already had a full-time job as a principal. So I think that's something that we really need to look at as we continue to administer those programs. there is a great deal of administrative work that goes along with that. We have the benefit of our current principal there who's been through extensive training and is continuing to do that. But that's an area where we need to really think about the support that we have for that. We've essentially opened a center within that school. And so there's a lot of administrative work that goes along with that. Expanding career and technical opportunities, that's a commitment that the board made a couple of years ago, and we made a lot of progress there. I don't think we're finished. I think there are a lot of ways that we can continue to increase our partnerships. Dr. Seitz has been working on that quite a bit with Mrs. Fleet, as well as involving what you're going to hear about Compass Academy. I don't want to give a whole lot of that away, but to increase our partnership and our dual enrollment opportunities, there's still some avenues out there that we, I think, can explore on behalf of our kids, and we should look at those. So a lot of these, I won't read these to you, you can see what they are, but they're basically commitments that we had already made, and we're just not finished with them. That's basically what that is. And then finally, we continue to think about operational efficiency and safety, especially in the pandemic, where safety has, frankly, a whole new ring in terms of how that plays out in our operational work in our schools. But we're really hoping to do some capital upgrades in the next couple of years. We've been working with the county on our capital improvement program and hoping that there will be, I've said, fidelity. We don't have really control over what gets funded at the county level, but we're wanting to partner with the county in a way that we actually build a CIP program that is that becomes a plan that we actually fund and work towards, no matter how far in the future we need to do that. The big ticket item for us, as you know, is the renovation at the high school that we've been very excited to do sometime. And so there's a renewed interest and renewed hope in that we're working on, and we really like to see that happen. We do safety audits every year, and so there are always upgrades that are recommended there. That's something that we've done. That's not a new initiative, but it is one that should be reflected in our budget. We do those every summer. And then one of the things you're going to hear about tonight, and in the grant update, is an exciting partnership that Mrs. Norris has worked with Laser Clean on behalf of our kids. This is an example of the kind of thing that I think you saw reflected in the commentary about increasing those opportunities for kids. Well, here is an exact vision of what that could look like with a partner here locally. I'm going to leave it at that and let her fill in the gaps there, because it's very exciting what she's done there. And then finally, the HVAC replacement at the elementary school that we've been working on. Yeah. These are the things that we really want to do to be good stewards and to realize savings. And so essentially, I'm asking the board to weigh in on these three priorities. I can go back and we can review them, but there's one essentially that really invests heavily in our staff from a compensation standpoint, but also support and professional learning. There's one that continues the work of expanding opportunities, academic program, career and technical opportunities, and supporting the expansion that you did this past year for pre-K intervention. And then finally, one where we really try to dig in on being the best stewards we can be and realizing every efficiency and just using those funds that we've been giving as wisely as possible. What questions do you have for me or for Mrs. Murray or Dr. Seitz?
I don't think you can weigh one over the other. I think they're all essential. And I don't mean that we need to rob Peter to pay Paul. I think we really need to hone down on all of them, because each one of them will significantly impact the education of our students.
Yeah, I agree. That's very true. And I can't emphasize enough just how these variables will really have a significant impact on on how we approach that, those top three, and certainly the insurance. Yeah.
Let me mention something that I'm sure you're already aware of, but that we are doing with one less mechanic in the bus garage because we don't have enough budgeted to hire. They're leaving Bridging Communities and making considerably more than the one we have. So you need to look at that, or we can't operate the bus system with one mechanic. Once all the buses get back on the road.
Absolutely.
Right.
You're exactly right. We really do need to adjust that salary schedule.
So were there any hits on the part-time position that was?
Not at the salary that we're advertising. None.
One person I think did
Was
show interest, but then
interested in
found
the
out
job.
the salary.
Yeah.
Withdrew.
Well, that's evident that we definitely need to do something with the person that's there now and the one that we hire. That salary has to be increased.
Absolutely agree. Yes. And just, I mean, in anticipation of that, I do want you to know we're working on that. We've already met with Mr. Harris. Dr. Seitz has been working with Karen Murray, and we've been doing a regional comparison, and we're going to bring you a new salary scale to approve.
I'm sure you were. I just wanted to emphasize it.
Absolutely. It's a big deal. It really is.
So this is an action item.
It is.
Is there a motion to approve the budget priorities for budget 22?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion about these priorities? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, board members, I put this on there because I thought we may have some updates. We really don't. The budget calendar draft that you've approved doesn't really need to be updated. The only thing I'll put on your radar, if you have opportunities to talk with your counterparts on the Board of Supervisors about if and when and how the boards want to either continue or amend what you've done in the past when you have a meeting to talk about the school budget and then a dinner that follows, that we haven't scheduled that yet. So I'll rely on you to a certain degree if you have opportunities to socialize that with your counterpart on that board, and then we make a decision together as to how you want to move forward with that. Otherwise, there's nothing to be changed on that.
All right. Your recommendations for the advisory committees.
Board members, on page 27, you'll find, actually on page 28, is the list of appointments. And so these, as you know, these are advisory committees that are established in board policy. They're made up of staff members and community members and parents. In each case, we have a staff member who serves as the sponsor, the facilitator. And these are already functioning, but as is part of board policy, we need to have the board actually take action on them. So if you have any questions, you can see the people who are involved. I've listed them there for you. I don't need to read through those. So I'd ask you, if you have any questions, certainly I can answer the questions. Otherwise, I'd ask you to approve this slate of advisory committee members to serve us this year.
Is there a motion to approve the advisory board committee appointment?
So moved.
Second. All right. Any questions over these appointments? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a school board policy update.
Board members, the policies that are in there for first reading, I can entertain any questions that you have. I really don't have anything specific to point out other than to say that this support staff grievance policy is one that has recently been rewritten by the school board attorney, by Sands Anderson. And it's been done so in accordance with the most recent legislation and the recommendation that Brad King has for you moving forward with regards to support staff grievances. It really doesn't change the policy that you had before. It does clarify some points that really were not addressed in the previous policy. So that's the only thing I'd say. I don't have anything specific to point out to you. It specifies the timelines. It specifies just the different protocol that the board would follow anytime you had a grievance from a support staff member. And I recommend that you approve it. We've vetted it quite a bit. Dr. Seitz and I have, and we've talked with Brad King and Wade Anderson about it, and we support it 100%.
All right, is there a motion to approve, GBMA.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions at this time? This is first reading. Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. For the next item, we're calling it an instructional update, and we really just wanted to highlight for you just a general update on how school is going. We've made several decisions, and there's several data points that we continue to monitor. And so we want to give you a high-level view academically what's happening with regards to operations. There's some operational upgrades that we've done, attendance, and all of those things. So we keep, well, these are the things I'd like to go through with you. We want to look at just the data related to COVID-19 for our region and for our community and how that impacts our decision. Dr. Seitz really has been monitoring that very closely every single day. She and I had a meeting today with Richard Williams. The three of us together did not feel there was any real benefit to him being here in person. We're going to relate to you what he shared with us, although if the board is interested in him being here, he's willing to do that. So want to go through some of that and revisit some of these decisions with you. There have been some reports released even since the last time we met that we want to make sure you're aware of and you have an opportunity to discuss. We'll look at attendance and academic data for each school, an update on some of the operational upgrades that we've been able to pursue. And then we've got a very exciting update on a planning grant that we were very delighted to be accepted into, that Danielle Norris is here and she's going to present some information for you. So with no further ado, I think really I'll turn it over to Dr. Seitz. Do you have is that microphone on?
I believe it's on.
Okay. Do you need to present anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't know.
I probably should have just put some of these colors up here of the things that I'm going to go over, but did not think about that. But what I can share is that the data that I look at on a daily basis is all found directly from the Department of Health website that everyone has access to. The main portion that I look at is the CDC K-12 school metrics. And within that, it gives you risk of transmission in schools. And if you remember some of the data that you've seen earlier, there's the dark green is the lowest risk, and then it goes all the way up to a red, which is the highest risk, which when we made the decision to open fully virtual was the data that Dr. Williams was able to share. And so I look at that every day. The core indicators that are for each county, and you can pull it by county. So obviously we look at Middlesex's data, and then we also look at a secondary indicators, which is Middlesex included in the Eastern region. So when we specifically look at the Middlesex data, some of the data that's reported is total number of new cases per 100,000 persons within the last 14 days. So that's a moving average that we look at. A second piece is the percentage of tests that are positive during the last 14 days within the county. And then the third piece is the ability of the schools to implement 5 key mitigation strategies. And so when you look at the VDH website, it can't give you that data because that is self-reported from the school division on how we're able to meet those strategies. And so I'll talk about the first two and then let you know where we are on those strategies. And so currently, as I'm sure you're aware, the numbers in the state of Virginia are continuing to rise, the number of cases, which is the same case in Virginia. When I pulled the numbers today, the 14-day average per 100,000 is 436.4, which is probably the highest that it's been for Middlesex. When we opened on November 4th in the hybrid model, at that time we were at a 46.43, which was considered a moderate level. We actually continued to go down after that, and from November 12th to the 15th, we were at an 18.57 per 100,000, which was considered lower. So it was exciting to see that go down. We did have a heads up that it was probably going to increase in Middlesex as it was beginning to increase across the state. And so we've seen that. And so that is the data specifically for Middlesex County, remembering that that number started from March when we had our first case up until now in December. Our conversation with Dr. Williams today, he again reemphasized that the numbers that we are seeing in Middlesex County is due to community spread. There were some outbreaks previously in long-term care facility, but he also indicated that the numbers specifically in Middlesex are lower than compared to some of our neighboring counties. So that's one piece that we look at, the numbers that are in the county currently and moving up to that. The other piece is the percentage of positivity for the test. So for those that are getting a test, what percent is positive and what percent is not positive. And currently that's at a moderate level for Middlesex. And then the third key piece, which probably is the most important piece, are those 5 mitigation strategies that we are practicing within the school division. And that is consistent and correct mask usage, social distancing, which we still are requiring 6 feet for all of our classrooms, hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette, cleaning and disinfection, and we have an excellent partnership with Laser Clean that's working well, and then contact tracing and working in collaboration with the Department of Health. We do have a great working relationship with them. Dr. Gretz speaks regularly with Dr. Williams, and anytime we do have a report of a confirmed case or a case that we are considering needs to be quarantined, I immediately reach out to the health department, and they are very quick to get back to us to work through those scenarios. We are initiating whenever we have a suspected case, and remembering that we've only had 1 staff member with a case and 1 student with a case since we've opened the schools. But we start contact tracing immediately, even if there is a suspicion of someone went home with a fever. We start that so that we're ready to put a plan into action if it's confirmed that we've had a positive case, which we're very fortunate. We've had very few of those. So that's the data that you'll find when you specifically look at Middlesex on the CDC K-12 school metrics. The second piece to consider, obviously, is that because not everyone stays in Middlesex County, there's some coming and goings within the region. And then with the secondary indicators, we look at percent change in new cases per 100,000, percent of hospital inpatient beds in the region, and percent of hospital inpatient beds in the region that are occupied by COVID-19 patients. And currently, as of today, the change in new cases is at a higher risk level. That's a 76.5%. Hospital inpatient beds that are available or occupied, that actually is at a lowest risk level. And then those that are occupied by COVID-19 patients are at a lower risk level. So those are pieces and indicators that the Department of Health looks at when providing these metrics to us. So again, our conversation with Dr. Williams, as of today, he did indicate that the transmissions have been in Middlesex, community spread related. He did indicate that even in high transmission areas, which every county in the state as of today, except for 3, are considered a high transmission area when you look at the data on the Department of Health. even that, that there is little to no spread or outbreaks within schools. He said, speaking for the Three Rivers Health District, there have only been 4 or 5 cases that they've been able to identify were transmitted within the school setting. And so that's when I said that the mitigation strategies, those 5 important strategies that we have in place are appearing to be working not just within our school division, but within our surrounding divisions also. So Dr. Gretz, did you have anything else?
That's really good news.
That is actually really good news.
Really good
Yes.
news.
I think it can look a little scary when you look at it and see bright red and see highest risk. But when you dig into it a little bit deeper, and again, Dr. Williams is very accommodating when having those conversations and sharing all the information that he's able to share, then it is positive.
Thank you for doing that. And I do want to again just say that, I mean, Dr. Seitz does a really good job of getting into the weeds and being very meticulous about helping us monitor some of those things. And yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add from our conversation with Richard Williams, he continues to have, these are his words, he continues to have confidence in schools' ability to do in-person learning, given the the mitigations that we have in place, you know, presuming that we're going to do that. And he said today that he continues to have that confidence, and he would not recommend those in his district who are doing hybrid in-person learning that they change, which I thought was a big deal because frankly, Dr. Williams has been exceedingly conservative. Mm-hmm. Maybe exceedingly isn't the right word. I just mean he's been very conservative, as he should be. And essentially what I'm seeing is that as they continue to study this virus, they're seeing that there is a nuance where I think at one time there was maybe a direct correlation in people's minds. If the community number is red, schools need to shut down along with everything else. Where they're seeing now that frankly, because it isn't being transmitted in schools at all, I think he said across his district, there were only 5. Mm-hmm. None of those in Middlesex. 5 specific cases where they could trace that it was transmitted in a school. And that's across 13 school divisions. And he did say that Middlesex was running at the lower end in terms of experience, meaning our experience is better than the majority in his district. But that if the virus is being spread in the community, closing schools isn't going to improve that. No. It's not being spread in schools. So I'm not recommending that we make a change based on that data and that information from him. I do want to make sure, because I did have a communication with a staff member about this, and I know all of you are aware, but I want to make sure you have an opportunity to discuss this if you have thoughts about it. A month and a half ago, actually maybe 2 months ago, 7 education associations in the Northern Virginia area got together. You saw this, and they wrote a letter to the governor asking the governor to to close schools. And so now, recently, you may have seen that the Virginia Education Association added its voice to that and is recommending that schools be fully virtual. And so I think it's an important thing, obviously, for this board to consider, along with every board, as we continue to monitor the metrics. Again, what we're hearing from our health director, who's boots on the ground with our data, is that he does not recommend that we do that. And I don't mind saying I have nothing against the VEA by any means. But the VEA is not in Middlesex. No. And they're not doing the research here, and they've not had any conversations with Richard Williams. And so I don't think that recommendation for me has a great deal of influence. I'm much more interested in what Richard Williams says. And the other thing that I'll tell you is that the CDC, you saw, I think, most recently adjusted their recommendation for schools on quarantines, essentially shortening the time that you could quarantine close contacts. and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but a big part of the impetus behind that was they thought that they'd have a better opportunity of getting people to obey the quarantine if they shut it down to, I think, 10 days from 14, partly because of the impact of 14 days on many people who are going without pay, that it's devastating for them. So I think it's noteworthy to say there wasn't scientific evidence to say that 10 days is better than 14 related to the virus. It was a behavioral component. And I just want to say on the record that we considered that because we have the flexibility to do it, and we chose to remain at the more conservative level. So I think we're maintaining over and above the safety mitigations that we're required to. We've been doing that from day forward. And so I do think it's a big deal that our health director in particular is still supportive of our continuing to have an in-person option for families. Before we move on, any comments from board members or questions or just remarks that you want to make about any of that?
I'm glad Dr. Williams is so supportive, because back in the summer, he was one of the reasons why we didn't open.
Sure.
And I think now with more data that he has, that he understands how well we can do this. So.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think Dr. Williams is very concerned about the spread of the virus in his district. He's just very confident that it's not happening in schools. But, okay. I really don't have an update for you on athletics. I thought that there may be some movement at the state level, but there really wasn't, even with the governor's new executive order and the amended order and the new restrictions. Nothing was done with athletics. It's the same. Our decision is the same. Do want to clarify for anybody who's listening that the decision this board made was about one season of athletics, and it was that first season that extends into February. No decision has been made by this board about the next season of athletics. We'll consider that when we get there. Okay. Well, we made the decision to offer in-person learning to our families a couple of months ago, really for a couple of reasons. One, we looked at a lot of outcome data that we had gathered during the extended closure from March through the opening fully virtually this past year, or this past fall, and looking at the impact that had on some of our students, our limited ability to connect with students, and we saw some alarming trends in some of the data that we looked at. And specifically with regards to reading and the PALS testing that we did with phonetic awareness, we had a lot of students that were failing 2 or more classes. That was especially concerning for us with graduating seniors who had Carnegie units and verified units of credit that they needed to think about for getting their diplomas. So it was the confidence that the health district expressed in our ability to do it with mitigations, as well as our urgency around intervening with regards to some of these academic gaps that were widening. So tonight, we just want to share a little more data about where we are right now. I'm not able to share. So for example, we looked at PALS data. I can't share another round of PALS data because that test doesn't happen until later on in the year. But we can look at where we are and how the schools are experiencing these things. And so I want to go through just a high-level summary for you of each school. I hope you can see those. So at the elementary school right now, we've got a total enrollment of 566, 406, so 73% of them are hybrid, and 27% of those students are fully virtual right now. With regards to attendance, looking at Q1, and Mrs. Daniel looked at chronic absenteeism, the definition of chronic absenteeism in our accountability model. So that's how she's gauging this. So essentially 22% of Middlesex elementary students were missing enough school to be considered chronically absent by the state in the first quarter. And as of now, we haven't completed the second quarter, but this interim mark in Q2, that number has been dramatically reduced to only 9%. So that's a positive thing. Looking academically at the elementary school, when you're looking at subject matters, Subject areas, core areas, so 4 or more subject areas that a student is failing. Quarter one, a quarter of the student body was failing 4 or more subjects, whereas as of today, that number has been reduced to 8. So I think that's positive as well, positive intervention. With regards to chronic absenteeism, and this really, this is happening at all 3 schools, but every week they're making phone calls and trying to connect with parents of students who are not in attendance. So the school counselor, the teachers, the principal, the assistant principal, they're making phone calls to reach out and connect with those families as much as possible. They're holding attendance meetings and they're making attendance plans with those families. They're focusing on, they're trying to identify what are the barriers for attendance, what things are keeping students from being able to be in school and from parents to get schools there. Are there school and community supports that can be offered? The school social workers involved in those meetings. There's support being offered through the technology department, the school counseling department, one-on-one meetings with parents and students to try to provide direct guidance on how they can do a better job with navigating the online environment. As much as possible, they're reaching out and trying to connect. But as you can see, even though the number's been dramatically reduced, there's still almost 10% of the kids that are just chronically absent. And so that's still problematic. They're trying to work through that. Any questions on this? So this is kindergarten readiness data. This is a test that's given every year, as you know. And I think one of the things that's interesting about this, I was talking to Mrs. Daniel today, these numbers are actually higher than what they typically are used to, not dramatically higher. So this is percentage of kindergarten, of students in kindergarten who are meeting these benchmarks in these 3 areas: social skills, self-regulation, and then mathematics. And the only thing that would be different is because of the pandemic, this test was given a little bit later in the year than it typically is. Maybe that had an impact, but okay. So with Sinclair Walker, this is by grade level. You can see a total enrollment of 266. A little over 70% are coming for some in-person learning, 29% fully virtual. The first row are students that have missed less than 5 times by grade level, so less than 5. The 6 to 20 absences would be those that are in the chronically absent mark. And then over 20, you can see there's a great number of 6th graders that they're just not able to connect with right now, no matter what they've tried. They're still trying to. But that's how that breaks down with attendance at the middle school. Students that are failing 2 or more classes, if you look at this chart all the way on the left, that's the first quarter. So in 6th grade, there were 30 6th graders at the end of the first quarter who were failing at least 2 classes. The next row over is looking at all students with quarter 2. And remember, this is interim, quarter 2. And then when you go on the other side, it splits the quarter 2 students into the ones that are fully virtual and the ones that are hybrid. You remember in quarter 1, everybody was virtual. So quarter 2 is the first time we have 2 cohorts of kids. So essentially 38 students at this time in quarter 2 in 6th grade are failing at least 2 classes. 15 of them are fully virtual and 23 are hybrid. And then you can, I won't read that to you, but you can do the same thing with, you can see in seventh grade. So where it was in quarter 1, where it is now in quarter 2, and how that splits up between those that are fully virtual. And then looking at the high school, total enrollment of 310, 66% are coming for in-person, 32% are fully virtual. In 9th grade, you can see how that enrollment breaks down. 55 are hybrid and 26 are virtual. So that's 68% of the 9th grade is coming in for the hybrid. We do have some students who are coming 4 days a week, students with IEPs. So in 10th grade, 68% are hybrid. In 11th grade, 73%, a little bit higher. And then of our seniors, 63% are coming for in-person learning. Absenteeism is much better at the high school. They really don't have anybody in that top level. Students who are failing at least 2 classes. One nuance, and I should have said this with Sinclair Walker as well. So reading the chart, in 9th grade, at the end of quarter 1, there were 28 students who were failing at least two or more classes. At this point in quarter 2, there are 27. That doesn't look like a change, but keep in mind what this is not going to show the nuance of if there were students in that first group who were failing 3 or 4, and who now are only failing 2, we're still failing 2, and we're trying to help with that, but that is a decrease that's not reflected in these numbers. And I do think that at the end of quarter 2, partially because of the work that they're doing to help students catch up and because of that dynamic that I just suggested, I think these numbers at the end of quarter 2 are going to be much better than they are right now at the interim, because these are still reflecting some work that hasn't been finished. So with that said, let's see if there may be a couple of other things I wanted to tell you about this data. So of the 86 students who are failing at least 2 at this point in quarter 2, of those 86 students, 52 were failing 2 or more in quarter 1. And so when looking at those 52 students who were failing 2 or more in quarter 1, now at the quarter 2 interim, the number of classes that they're currently failing is less than the number that they were failing in quarter 1. So there is improvement there, as I just said, from almost all of those students. Of the 86 that are failing the interim, 38 of those are all virtual, and at least 6 of those have poor attendance. So same kinds of things that were going on that I told you at the elementary and middle school with the weekly phone calls, the attendance meetings, the visits from Ron Hostinski, trying really hard to move the needle. They don't have the same level of truancy at the secondary level as they do with the younger students, but do anticipate this data will be better at the end of quarter 2. All that to say, we're getting better at delivering instruction in this hybrid environment. We're improving, as we should. I mean, we're learning how to do it, and with each day that goes by, we learn how to do it a little better. Our kids learn how to connect a little better, but there are still some students for whom we're not able to engage and connect yet. And there are some students and families who are really struggling with the technology and the platforms and just supporting the work that has to happen at home when kids are at home 3 out of 5 days a week. And so I want to paint a very real picture for you. I think that these interventions are working, and I think it's been a very positive thing for us to have students back in school, but by no means is this the best scenario. I think it's the best that we're able to do given the restrictions that we're under and the mandates that we have, but it's still very problematic for a lot of families, and we still have a lot of concerns that we're trying to overcome academically with students. Anything you wanted to add to that?
I think that covers it.
Okay. So let's talk about Compass Academy. And honestly, since Mrs. Norris is going to be here to do the next part of this, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Do you want to go over this data with them? Right. Okay. So while you're coming up here, let me jump up here real quickly and just update you on a couple of the operational upgrades that this board approved and that we were able to get some funding from the county to help with CARES funding. The bipolar ionization that's being installed in all 3 schools, you remember that has to be done by December 31st. Honeywell has been procured for that through a cooperative agreement, and they're working at the high school, I believe now, and they're just going to continue working, and they're going to have it done by the 31st. But it has begun, and they're working on that every day in the 3 schools. The air filters on the buses, essentially our team, partially because as Mr. Goforth mentioned, We're down a staff member in the maintenance department. Dustin Harris is working on it. Bruce is working on it. We can basically do about one of those a week, maybe 2 a week. So we'll just continue doing those until we get the whole fleet outfitted with those. But it has begun. Last week they came in and they started installing them. We have at all 3 schools water filling stations that are being implemented. I know they've begun it here and at the high school, and I don't think they've yet started at the elementary school, but you'll see those. Those enable the students to fill you've probably seen them in different places. Yeah. And then the December delivery of our 2 electric buses has been moved to January 4th. So that's the most recent news that we received on those. And we're looking at potentially holding some kind of a ribbon cutting later that month. I'll give you more details about that as Peg Jordan is really planning that. But those are some of the operational upgrades that are very positive and are ongoing. And with that, I'll back up to, you can just kind of walk them through the summary of what's happening in Compass, and then I'll switch over to your slide deck and you can tell them about the grant opportunity.
Okay. Microphone. Thank you. Good evening. So I don't know if going last is like the tide ending at a baseball game or if it's the movie credits, but I wanted to share with you, we have some amazing things going on at Compass Academy. I'm Danielle Norris, for anyone who is watching, maybe doesn't know that I'm the director of Compass Academy. Our students have been fortunate enough to come in person 4 days a week, with the exception of Wednesdays, which have been reserved as professional development days because they're considered at risk. And so I currently have 7 students in my program because of social distancing and because of the personalization of that program. But overall, across the 7, they're enrolled in 62 different classes, or they've had the opportunity to be enrolled in 62 different classes since we began school in August. Out of those 62 courses, I have had over 36 courses be completed by students, and they've demonstrated mastery in those courses by demonstrating passing the curriculum through the APEX curriculum that we use at the Academy. At this time, all of my students are passing all of their classes because failing is not an option at school for me. They have to redo any quizzes that they fail, relearn them, demonstrate mastery that way. So we take that opportunity for blended learning, and it's very personalized, and we walk through that, both myself and my paraprofessional who works with my students as well. 6 out of my students have had 3 or fewer absences, so I'm very proud. When you look at that percentage, I think it came out to like 85%, which I did not feel was a fair demonstration because I have such a small number that one does impact it. But we do have attendance plans, been in communication with families to make sure that students are in attendance every day and are accessing all those opportunities. 5 out of my students are currently employed with Laser Clean. So as Dr. Grutz mentioned, we have been working with not only our community service partners, which include the Career Center and the Middlesex Animal Shelter, but we've also been partnering with other opportunities within the county, one being Laser Clean. And we have been fortunate enough that they have taken on a partnership with our students and provided them after school jobs. So 5 out of my 7 work on a regular basis. They are employed, they are getting a paycheck, they have gone through the interview process, they have new resumes, they are getting feedback from an employer. And so that has been an amazing process to watch over the last month. I'm very fortunate that Pat Manuel has taken his former coaching experience and really embraced this opportunity to teach our kids the right way to go about employment and the job skills that they need to be successful as they leave high school. So that is very exciting. 4 of my seniors are also planning to and are enrolled in the SDV 100 course, which is offered by Ann Baltricitis. She is working with RCC, and students are dual enrolled with RCC. That class begins January 16th. All 4 of those seniors are planning on attending RCC in the fall. They have all worked, all of my students have worked closely with Cherie Carl, who is the career coach at RCC. They all have post-secondary plans, 2, 3, 2.5 maybe, plan on going directly into workforce, while the rest plan on going to community college and then going to a 4-year program. So they do have goals, which is very exciting, and we're working through that process.
So my data looks a little different than some of the other schools. But we're continuing on with that. Because of Compass Academy, as Dr. Gretz switches these slides, and the experience that we've had by offering students choice, which I feel gives them a sense of empowerment. It has increased engagement at the Compass Academy. For any of you who have visited or know about the program, these students are typically disengaged or for whatever reason have struggled to be successful in a traditional high school classroom. They're there for a variety of different reasons, but while they're at the Compass Academy, they've all thrived. Dr. Slites and I have actually had a couple of conversations over the last few weeks where we have students who are reaching the next level in their educational career and they don't want to leave. They have this fear of what comes next. And so part of my job is to coach them through what the next part is. And that directly correlates with our innovation implementation planning grant that we've received. Very exciting. So in July, we were notified that we were the recipient of a $50,000 grant to improve our innovation within our school system. And I feel like I need to click it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm gonna
okay.
have to do that.
I'll just click.
You ready?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we received this grant, and our focus is really on increasing engagement as well as exposure for our students. I know that that's an area of weakness. Formerly, before being the assistant principal at the elementary school, I spent 9 years at the high school. And engagement is something that is hard to obtain. You have students who are high achieving, who naturally are engaged because they have an intrinsic motivation. And then you have students who maybe fall at the other end, who need some sort of tangible motivation. And then you have a good group of kids in the middle that are just there because they're there. They don't really know what their plans are. They don't really know what their goals are. They may or may not have supports to push them in the right direction or guide them in the right direction. And so this grant is designed for those students. We want to increase the critical thinking, the creative thinking, the communication, the collaboration, the citizenship, all those 5 C's, and rethink what a traditional high school experience would look like for students. We are a rural division. I don't have to tell you guys that, you know that. We have limitations in what we're able to offer our students simply because of staffing and funding and a whole plethora of other things that confine us. But we don't want to let those circumstances define our future for our students. And so with this, our goal is to be able to include a more personalized experience for secondary kids through blended learning and increased access. So ultimately engaging them with 100 different options if we have the opportunity to do so. And 100 different options is not coming next year, but hopefully in the 5 to 10 year plan. So ideally, what we would do is take some sort of blended platform where students have access to an online curriculum, whether that's offered through Canvas or whether that's offered through some other sort of avenue that we look at, but pairing that with the support of an actual teacher in place to guide them and facilitate those experiences and coach them through it while they're learning what they have an interest in learning. So for example, if I have a student who knows they want to go into foreign affairs, but there's no opportunity for them to take Mandarin at Middlesex High School, and there's no opportunity bridging or at RCC or through AP classes, they can enroll in this, they could do it independently. We would have an assessment set up to ensure that they're demonstrating mastery of that, and they could do that on their own pace. That might take them 2 months, that might take them 2 semesters, but they have control over the pacing in which they take it, and they have a lot of control over the number of courses in which they're able to accomplish. So ultimately redefining those time constraints on students. As adults in a job environment or in any environment, we are able to do as little or as much as we desire with certain restrictions. And if I'm motivated to achieve more, I have the freedom typically in a job setting to do that. Our students, we sometimes limit that in a traditional classroom outside of what their curriculum looks like that's mandated by their teacher, given to them weeks at a time. So if we give them that experience in a controlled setting, but one that is loosely defined and that they have choice in, we're hoping that that will increase their engagement, that will decrease attendance issues, that will decrease discipline issues, it will decrease any sort of disengagement that comes from secondary students. So, like I said, our mission is really to increase alternative pathways to graduation. We currently have amazing supports for our students. We have all the partnerships that you guys represent, and we do feel like we are very blessed at Middlesex High School and in the county to be able to offer students what we are able to offer, but we don't want to stop with just those things. So we're looking at taking these blended opportunities as well as expanding our community involvement for students, taking the rich opportunities that we have from the citizens that are here. And I had somebody on my student engagement team the other day. He said, what if we had like advisors? We have such awesome resources within this county. If we had pathways for students and they had advisors, like what a cool idea to be able to increase that community engagement. I think the ideas here are limitless. So we have created a team of individuals, Mrs. Fleet and myself, and we are partnering with a consultant, Gina Keller, who I'll explain in a few more slides, as well as some teachers at the high school and Jess Croswell from St. Clair Walker to really delve into this work and figure out what do we want this to look like for the 21-22 school year. We know we want to increase opportunities for workforce. We know we want to increase partnership opportunities. We know we want to increase course offerings for students and focus on personalization and choice, and really strengthen all relationships between school, our citizens, and our natural communities that exist around us. And it's just there on slide, what I said before. So I'll skip over that one. So we've talked a little bit about how are we going to do this. And we are meeting monthly at the high school. Mrs. Fleet and myself meet with we have a SET team, a student engagement team that we are working with. We use online resources to provide feedback. We've done some forums and surveys from our staff. We are also looking at doing surveys with our students to find out what they're interested in taking. It is pointless, in my personal opinion, to create a program for kids that kids do not want to access. So we really want to find out what our students need, what they want, and work around them and with them. We are forming and collaborating with statewide partnerships, and we're planned on touring schools, but luckily COVID has had an impact on that. So we are Zooming with other school divisions in the state that offer similar programs and trying to base our model off of a blended integration of what they are offering, but a better version. So we are working with Gina Keller. She is fantastic. She is a consultant for us on this grant. She's the director of the Commonwealth Learning Partnership and has been instrumental in the Virginia's for Learners initiative. She works closely with the state of Virginia still in the Virginia Department of Education. She was the former coordinator of professional development for the VDOE. So we've been blessed to have her come in person and Zoom with us. And she's kind of been our guide on the side as Mrs. Fleet and I walk through this with our team at the high school. This is just a quick plan of where we're headed and wraps up this presentation, but we are looking forward to really delving into what engagements and assessment will look like for this. We know that students right now have opportunities to take online programs. What makes this different is they will have somebody coaching them. So slightly modeled off of Compass Academy. I am a former English teacher, but I am teaching algebra functions and data analysis. I'm teaching government. I'm teaching Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and Spanish 3. I am not qualified by the state of Virginia to teach those classes. I'm not certified or endorsed in those subject areas. However, I have the materials and the resources to support students in figuring out how they take those classes, how they master those classes. So if I can do all those things, we think that we want to give somebody the opportunity to help facilitate this and give our students access to how do they build upon the knowledge that they want to have, not the knowledge that they're told to have, and give them some ownership in that. We are looking to, like I said, give a student survey and build our partnerships with the community, create a formalized plan in March, continue with our partnership planning through April, and then finalize our plan in June of 2021, and hopefully have an implemented plan for the fall of 2021.
Very exciting.
So that's a lot of information. Like I said, I don't know if I'm the last inning at a baseball game or if I'm doing friends, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I appreciate the opportunity to come here and share and look forward to keeping you guys updated with the grant.
Did you write the grant?
Dr. Seitz and Dr. Grutz and I worked together to do the grant. Yes, sir. I did not independently write the grant.
Who's it funded through?
It's a DOE grant.
Okay.
Yeah, we were one of 5 divisions to get this money. First of all, thank you. Appreciate that. It was an excellent summary. I just want to add, I guess, from my point of view to your comment about whether this is the credits or the baseball. COVID and the impact of COVID and the metrics that we have to monitor related to the pandemic, that gets all the press, and appropriately. It's important. But I thought it was important that we remember certainly that you have an update on how this grant money is being spent in our plan. But I'll just tell you, for me, this is the eye of the hurricane of the whole reason that I'm even in this work. Mm-hmm. The whole idea that we would think about, we began a few years ago with a pilot program where we took some kids who were not experiencing success and looked at every one of them individually and created a pathway for them to be successful and to get a diploma. And so phase 2 of that is thinking about how we can do that across the board. This, I can't tell you how exciting this is to me and how important it is. And we've got unbelievable leaders who are working on this. And I think that what's going to happen as a result, this all began with the partnership that Dr. Seitz kind of carved out and pioneered with the work that she was doing with Poquoson and West Point. And I think this is going to have unbelievable ramifications in Middlesex. I just think it's so exciting. I'll quit talking about it. I'm sure you guys have questions.
It really is, sounds very exciting to think that we will be able to begin to offer opportunities. And I love the coach idea, because teenagers need people to coach them, even though they don't think so sometimes. But it would be great to have coaching to help students, guide them. Even though you may not have that degree, it's fundamentally the way to help people, and that'd be great.
Thank you. We're excited. I look forward to keeping you all updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next.
Are you finished, Dr. Bill?
I am,
Okay.
yes, unless there are questions for us.
The floor is open for public comment. The floor is now closed for public comment. Anything else, Dr. Grutz, in your report?
No,
Okay.
I think that's all.
Any old business to come before the group? Any new business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.